To Bree, he said, raising his glass like he owned the room. To her beauty, brilliance, and finally, her freedom. Everyone laughed. Except me. The toast was short, sharp, and sliced right through my spine. I stared at the man who gave it, Kellen, with his champagne confidence and tailored grin, and I waited for Bree to shut it down. To say, hey, my husband is right here. But she didn't. She smiled. She actually smiled. You ever watch someone you love applaud their own betrayal? It doesn't happen like in the movies. There's no dramatic music. No thunder. Just a low fizz of shame bubbling in your chest while everyone around you claps. My hands were under the table, gripping the napkin so tight it tore in half. This was supposed to be just another work party. The 8th one I'd attended with her. Every year the same hotel, same color-coded lanyards, same bland chicken with fancy garnish. But this year felt like an ambush in slow motion. Kellen was her new client lead. Technically not her boss, not her equal, just that weird gray zone where HR can't touch you. He was loud, too loud, and he had a way of standing too close to Bree, always finding reasons to whisper something funny in her ear that made her tilt her head and laugh in that breathy way I hadn't heard in months. I didn't even know his name 2 weeks ago. Now he was toasting to my wife's freedom. And here's the sick part. No one even noticed how wrong it was. They all looked at me like I should have been grateful. Grateful to be invited. Grateful to sit at the end of the table. Grateful to watch my wife slowly slip out of our marriage like it was a party dress she no longer liked the fit of. I tried to smile through it. Tried to look composed. But when Bree leaned in and said, "Don't make it weird, okay?" I knew this wasn't about me being jealous. This was about me being replaced. And Kellen knew it. He didn't hide it. He wanted me to feel it. Later that night, while people danced and the wine kept flowing, I stepped outside into the cold. I needed air. I needed to remind myself I was still a person and not just some footnote in someone else's story. And that's when I saw them. Through the glass, tucked near the bar, half hidden behind a column, she kissed him. Not a friendly peck. Not a drunk mistake. A slow, practiced kiss. Like it had already happened before. And as I stood in the dark, watching the woman I once thought I'd grow old with melt into another man's hands, I didn't cry. Not yet. Because something else kicked in first. I smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when you're happy. The kind of smile that means someone's about to learn the hard way. I'm not as harmless as I look. I didn't confront her that night. Not because I was too scared. Though, if I'm being honest, I was. Not the kind of fear where you shake and sweat. The deeper kind. The kind where your heart gets quiet, like it's holding its breath. No, I didn't say anything because I needed more than a glimpse behind a column. I needed proof. Not for the world. Not for some court. For me. Because for years, Bree had been the only part of my life I thought was untouchable. If I was going to accept she'd kissed another man, while I stood outside that glass window like a forgotten guest at my own funeral, I needed to see it in her eyes. She came home at 12:43 a.m. I know the exact time because I stared at the clock the entire night like a lunatic. The door clicked open like nothing had happened. Her heels clacked across the tile, then silence. She didn't even look in the bedroom first. Just went straight to the bathroom. I could hear the makeup wipes, the water running, the sigh she always made when her lashes came off. Like she was finally done performing for the day. When she finally walked in, I pretended to be asleep. I even added a little snore for effect. I felt her stand in the doorway for a while, watching me. I don't know what she saw. I don't know if she felt guilty. She didn't say a word. Just crawled into bed with cold skin and a warm lie. And I laid there, facing the wall, wondering how long this had been going on. 2 weeks? 2 months? Since Kellen joined the company? Since before that? Had every late-night client dinner been part of some slow erosion I never noticed? Was I really this blind? Or did I just not want to see? The next morning, I made her coffee like I always do. She smiled and said, "You're the best," like I hadn't watched her kiss another man 10 hours ago. That was when I decided something important. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to break plates or hack into her phone. I was going to play dumb, the one role I was clearly born to play. And while she thought I was falling back asleep, I would be watching, listening, and gathering. Because if Bree thought she could turn our life into a game, then fine. Let's play. And guess what? I cheat too. Not in the way she did. Not with kisses or texts or flirty wine glasses. No, I cheat by pretending I'm weak. I let people think I'm slow to catch on. That I'm just the guy with the safe job and the quiet eyes who wouldn't hurt a fly. But I know how to plan. I know how to trap. And this time, I wasn't just going to catch a cheater. I was going to expose a fantasy. Because what Bree didn't know was that I had already started recording. Not on my phone. On hers. And the next time she texted Kellen, she wouldn't be texting alone. Bree always kept her phone face down, but never locked. She used to say it was in case of emergencies, like I might need to call someone if I found her unconscious. A romantic gesture, in theory, but now it felt like a dare. Like she was saying here, look, if you're brave enough. So I did. 2 mornings after the gala, she left for her Pilates class, the one she always came back from glowing with energy that never seemed meant for me. I waited 10 minutes, listened to make sure the car pulled out of the driveway, and then walked to the kitchen counter where her phone sat next to a half-eaten protein bar. I picked it up. It unlocked with a swipe. No password. No fingerprint. Like it was begging to be read. The texts weren't in her main message app. They were buried inside a second one I hadn't even heard of. One with a bright orange icon disguised to look like a budgeting app. But once I opened it, it wasn't spreadsheets or expenses I saw. It was Kellen. Messages. Pictures. Voice notes. At first, it was just subtle stuff. Flirty jokes, work complaints, emojis that lingered. But then, just 4 days before the gala, a voice message. You're mine after this weekend. No more pretending. I'm done sneaking around. There was no reply from her, at least not in the thread. But an image was sent the next morning. A mirror selfie in our bathroom. In my t-shirt. Caption, soon. I sat down. It felt like the air had been vacuumed from the room. I wasn't even angry, not yet. What I felt was closer to vertigo. Like I'd been living at the top of a skyscraper for years, and just now realized it had no foundation. Everything started spinning. My knees were cold. My hands numb. They weren't just flirting. They weren't even just sleeping together. They were planning something. Talking in codes, booking hotels, complaining about our deal being too slow. What deal? What were they doing? I took screenshots. Dozens. I didn't trust cloud backups, so I airdropped them to an old tablet I hadn't used in years and hid it inside a hollow book under my side of the bed. I felt like a spy in my own life. A ghost haunting his own home. But then came something that shattered even the icy calm I'd been holding on to. A message from Kellen, dated that same morning. I made the call. It's happening next quarter. He'll never see it coming. That wasn't flirting. That wasn't just infidelity. That was strategy. I looked back through their conversation with new eyes, noticed all the times they talked about positioning, about him being too passive, about waiting for the moment when he won't matter anymore. This wasn't just cheating. This was a takeover. And the scariest part? Bree wasn't resisting it. She wasn't having a crisis of conscience. She was coordinating it. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, protein bar crumbs and all. Then I walked to the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and said something I never thought I'd hear from my own mouth. She's trying to erase you. And I believed it. Not emotionally. Logically. Tactically. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel pathetic. I felt ready. By Friday night, I had memorized the name of the hotel. It was buried inside one of Bree's messages, casually tossed between a comment about room service being better than last time and a photo of a wine bottle with 2 glasses. The place was one of those mid-tier business hotels that tried too hard to be modern. All gray carpets, chrome elevators, and generic artwork that looked like it was printed off a Pinterest board. I didn't tell Bree I knew, of course. That would have ruined the game. Instead, I said I had a work event across town. I kissed her forehead on my way out the door like a dutiful husband, even offered to pick up dinner on the way back. She smiled and said she might not be hungry later. I bet she wouldn't be. I arrived at the hotel an hour before the time she was scheduled to meet Kellen. Yes, scheduled. They were planning these meetups like business deals. 8:30 sharp. 4th floor. Room already reserved. Don't use your card. That last part was Kellen's advice. Clever. Too bad he underestimated me. I waited in the car for a while. Heart thudding, palms sweating, replaying every possible version of what I might see. But when the time came, I walked in. No disguise. No hat. No sunglasses. I wanted her to see me, eventually. But not yet. The lobby was mostly empty, except for a bored concierge and a couple of travelers dragging sad suitcases behind them. I found a seat near the elevators, hidden just enough behind a fake ficus tree, and waited. At 8:27 p.m., she walked in. Bree didn't look nervous. She looked elevated, energized. Her hair was straighter than usual, her heels taller. She wore the blouse I once told her made her look powerful, back when that was a compliment and not a warning. She didn't even pause to check her surroundings. Just walked straight to the elevator like she'd done it a dozen times before. 2 minutes later, Kellen arrived. No handshake, no hug, just a nod, like soldiers on a mission. They rode the elevator up together. I didn't follow immediately. I didn't want them to hear the ding. So I waited until the next one came and took it up to the 4th floor. I didn't plan on confronting them. Not yet. I just needed to know the room. I walked the hallway slowly, listening. And then I heard it. Laughter. Her laugh. Bree's real laugh. Not the polite chuckle she gave me over breakfast, but the one that made her shoulders bounce and her voice crack a little at the end. The one I hadn't heard in months. Maybe years. Room 417. I stood outside for a moment, not breathing. I took out my phone and recorded the sound of their voices through the door. Nothing explicit. Just enough. Enough for her father, who had always said I wasn't good enough. Enough for her sister, who once told me I was lucky Bree even chose you. Enough for me, for when I started to gaslight myself into thinking maybe I'd imagined all this. I didn't knock. I just walked away. Down the hall. Back to the elevator. Out through the lobby. Calm. Composed. Invisible. But something strange happened as I stepped into the parking lot. I smiled. Not because I was okay. I wasn't. But because I had just taken the first step toward dismantling a lie that had been years in the making. I wasn't going to win her back. That part of me was dead now. But I was going to make sure she couldn't erase me without consequences. And I knew exactly where to start. Because Bree forgot one thing while she was up in that hotel room with Kellen. She left her laptop at home. And her laptop was already open. I wasn't running when I got back to the house. That would have given it too much power. I moved through the doorway like I'd forgotten something casual. My wallet, maybe, or my dignity. The house was still. Too still. Even the fridge didn't hum. The lights in the hallway flickered once when I stepped past them, like the house was holding its breath along with me. The laptop was exactly where she left it, on the corner of the couch, open, screen dimmed, but not asleep. I stood over it for a long minute, the glow casting long shadows across the carpet, and I kept hearing her laugh in my head from that hotel hallway. That laugh wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never was. I tapped the spacebar. The screen blinked awake. No password. Bree always bragged that she had nothing to hide. She used to say it like a virtue. Now it felt more like a threat. Like she was so sure of herself, so convinced I'd never dare to look, that security had become an afterthought. I wonder now if that was the whole point. To make me feel small even while she tore down everything we'd built. The desktop was clean, but I knew where to look. Bree was organized. Predictably so. There was a folder named Admin on the desktop. Inside, another called Work Transfer. It sounded innocent, like backup files. But something about the timestamp caught my eye. All the documents had been modified this week. Some as recently as last night. The night she kissed Kellen. The night she came home and kissed me on the cheek out of habit. I opened one of the documents. It wasn't a resignation letter. It was a transition plan. A detailed one. With bullet points. With names. With strategy. And there it was, my name. Underlined. Elwood should remain uninformed until full handover is complete. I froze. This wasn't just about her job. This was about me. About our shared assets. Our bank. My name was mentioned next to terms like liquidation, exit clauses, and ownership adjustments. There was even a reference to a consulting firm I'd never heard of, Hartwell and Ling, with a note. Kellen to finalize retainer this Friday. That was today. I opened the next document. More strategy. This one outlined a timeline. 6 months. A full personal and professional extraction. With a note at the top. Objective, leave clean. No backlash. No access. And in smaller font, a sentence that made my stomach lurch. He won't fight. He never does. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to erase me. Silently. Efficiently. Legally. Like I was a rusted hinge on a door they no longer needed to open. I don't remember sitting down. But I must have, because I looked up an hour later and the sky outside had gone from deep blue to bruised gray. I was still reading. Still scrolling. Every new tab I opened confirmed it. Their affair was only part of the betrayal. The bigger betrayal was the one I never saw coming. The cold, surgical dissection of my place in her life. They didn't want me hurt. They wanted me invisible. But here's the thing they forgot. You can't fully erase someone who's willing to lose everything to expose you. I may be passive. I may be quiet. I may be the guy no one notices at the dinner party. But now I had everything. Screenshots, files, timelines, proof, and more importantly, a secret I had kept even from Bree. Because while she had spent the last few months removing me from her life, I had spent the last few years building something she didn't know existed. Something I never told her about. And tomorrow, it would be time to show her what a passive man can really do when he decides he's done playing the fool. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was too upset to close my eyes, though I was, but because for the first time in months, I didn't want to sleep. I had finally moved from numb to aware, from confused to precise. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee, watching the minutes shift on the stove clock like they meant something. I waited until I heard the garage door. Her car rolled in at 1:17 a.m. She walked in at 1:19. Her heels hit the tile just like they always did. 3 steps, pause, 2 more, silence. She was checking if I was awake. I made sure I wasn't. She came into the bedroom a minute later, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. Her voice was soft, too soft, like she was trying to wrap guilt in a blanket of normalcy. "You still up?" she asked into the dark. I didn't answer. She climbed into bed. I listened to her breathe, and I stared at the ceiling, wondering if she'd already decided who would get the couch when she moved out. I wondered if she thought she'd cry when she told me, or if she'd fake it. Bree was a good actress. She'd once cried watching a commercial about luggage. The next morning, I got up before her, made coffee like always, but this time I didn't add the sugar she liked. Just handed her the cup and watched her take a sip without thinking. She flinched, said nothing, just drank it, bitter and silent. I told her I was working from a coffee shop that day. She barely looked up from her phone. The shop wasn't real. I drove to a parking lot 2 blocks from Kellen's condo and waited in my car for over an hour. Bree didn't show. Not that day. Maybe they were being careful. Maybe she was giving things space to cool. But I wasn't there for her that day anyway. I was there to see him. Kellen came out of his building at 12:43 p.m. sharp. Phone to his ear, laptop bag over his shoulder, looking like a man who believed nothing bad could ever touch him. I watched him cross the street, get in his car, and drive off like he hadn't just spent the last few months dismantling someone else's life like a side project. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd already gone further than they ever imagined. 2 days ago, while Bree was in the shower, I'd used her fingerprint to open her tablet. I'd copied her cloud backups to a hard drive she didn't know existed. Not just messages, voice notes, call logs, screenshots of her shared calendar with Kellen, labeled in code like teenagers cheating on a quiz. But that wasn't the real win. The real win was what I'd found in her email, a PDF contract between Kellen and a corporate consulting firm, naming my company as an acquisition target. That was the secret I never told Bree. 6 years ago, I started a software company with 2 friends from college. At first, we worked out of basements and borrowed offices. It was quiet, small, and completely off Bree's radar. She never cared about nerd stuff. She thought I still worked in IT support for a logistics firm. I never corrected her. But last year, we landed a patent. This year, we got an offer. And the name on the acquisition paperwork? Kellen's firm. With notes attached in Bree's handwriting, suggesting how to handle me once the buyout was done. My name was listed under non-essential personnel. I laughed when I saw that. Out loud. Alone in the car. Non-essential. She thought I had nothing because I never bragged. Never took her to the office. Never showed her the numbers. She thought I was just the guy who brought her tea when she had cramps and never made a scene when she stayed out too late. But I wasn't empty. I was just quiet. And now? Now I had a flash drive full of betrayal, a company about to be sold out from under me, and a marriage built like a haunted house, empty on the inside and full of cold spots. I went home that night and made dinner like usual. We ate in silence. She asked how the coffee shop was. I said it was quiet. She smiled like she believed me. She didn't realize I'd already pulled the plug. Not on the marriage. On the sale. I made one call earlier that day. To my real partners. The ones Bree never met. I told them everything. Not the personal stuff, just enough. Enough for them to see what was coming. The manipulation. The deception. The leverage. The deal. Paused. Indefinitely. And tomorrow, I'd make sure Bree knew exactly why. The hardest part wasn't gathering the evidence. It wasn't reading the messages or finding the contracts or piecing together how they planned to break me down brick by brick. The hardest part was pretending, day after day, that I hadn't already won. That morning, I made her eggs. Over easy, just how she liked them. She barely touched them. She was distracted. Her fingers kept twitching toward her phone like it had something to confess, but hadn't mustered the courage yet. I asked if she was okay. She nodded, said she was just tired. I almost laughed into my coffee. We were both pretending to sleep through an earthquake. I waited until that evening to say anything. Not because I was stalling, because I wanted the house quiet. No distractions, no excuses. Just us, face to face, like two people who used to be in love. I told her I had something to show her. She looked up from the couch, wary but not scared. Not yet. She probably thought I found a parking ticket or maybe some old photo of her with an ex she'd forgotten to delete. She didn't expect the folder. Not a digital folder. A real one. Manila. Heavy. I had printed everything. The messages. The voice notes, transcribed. The hotel booking confirmations. The draft resignation letters. The consulting agreements. The call logs. The screenshots. The photos. All neatly organized, labeled, and highlighted. She opened the first few pages with a forced chuckle, like she was waiting for the punchline. But by page 6, she wasn't laughing. She just stared, frozen, silent. Her fingers gripped the edge of the folder like it might bite her. She flipped one more page, then looked up at me with eyes that were suddenly too wide. I'd seen that look before. Years ago, when we got the call that her father had collapsed. That same stunned, disbelieving stillness, as if time had betrayed her personally. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "I've always had it," I said quietly. "You just never noticed." She blinked. Her lips parted like she wanted to explain, but nothing came. I watched her try to find a script. Something to say. Anything. But there wasn't one. She'd spent so long rehearsing this double life that when the spotlight shifted, she forgot her lines. She reached for her phone. I didn't move. Just said, "He won't pick up." That was true. I'd already sent an anonymous copy of the folder to Kellen's company hours before. Not to destroy him. Not yet. Just enough to make him uncomfortable. Enough to let the pressure start building. "I didn't mean for it to," she began, but I cut her off with a shake of my head. "You meant for it to stay hidden. That's worse." She didn't cry. Bree didn't cry when she got caught. She sat, like someone unplugged her. All that energy, that sharpness, the endless to-do lists and calendar alerts, it all just drained out of her body. I stood up and left the folder in her lap. And then I told her something she absolutely wasn't ready to hear. "I'm not leaving." That made her flinch. She looked up again, confused. "What?" "I'm not moving out. Not until the house sells. It's mine too. And until then, we live like roommates. You sleep in the guest room. You don't talk to me unless it's necessary. You don't touch anything that isn't yours. You don't pretend we're okay." Her mouth opened, but no words came. And I leaned down, close enough for her to smell the calm she thought I didn't have. "You want it out, Bree? You've got it. But you don't get to disappear like I never existed. You don't get to rewrite this story with me edited out." She looked away, jaw clenched, like she wanted to scream. But she didn't. She just nodded. And I walked upstairs, not victorious, not broken, but something colder, something sharp, because she thought the worst thing she could do was betray me. She had no idea what it feels like to be erased. But she would. And not with rage. Not with fire. With silence. With absence. With the slow, surgical dismantling of the illusion she built, one truth at a time. She packed in silence. It was 3 weeks later when she finally moved out. No screaming. No begging. Just boxes. Carefully folded clothes. Labeled containers. A polite knock on my office door to let me know the movers had arrived. "I'll be gone by noon," she said softly, like she was trying not to wake something sleeping between us. I didn't answer right away. Just nodded and went back to my work. She stood there for a second longer like she wanted one more moment. Not forgiveness, just permission to leave without being the villain. But she didn't get it. Some things don't get clean endings. Some exits come with echoes that follow you forever. By 11:52, she was gone. The door clicked behind her, and the house exhaled. I sat alone in the kitchen with the same coffee mug I'd used for months. Same cracked handle. Same bitter taste. But it felt different now. I felt different now. Because I wasn't broken. I was still here. And for the first time in years, I mean really years, I wasn't waiting for someone to come home. I wasn't adjusting my needs, shrinking my voice, or performing stability like it was my full-time job. I was just being with the quiet, with myself. That night, I walked into the spare room, now empty of her boxes, and opened the window. Cool air came in, the scent of damp leaves, distant city sounds, life moving forward. And I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I didn't fall apart. I smiled, not out of spite, not because I'd won some revenge, but because I had walked through a storm built by someone else and found my way back without becoming like them. I didn't lose who I was. I didn't burn down the world to feel powerful. I didn't destroy anyone. I just let the truth do what truth does. Unravel everything that wasn't real. In the months that followed, I took long walks again. I answered calls I'd been ignoring. I reconnected with my old team, threw myself into the company, finally showed my name on something that mattered. I wasn't hiding anymore. From myself. From anyone. And the best part? I stopped trying to make people stay. Because the ones who deserve to stay, they don't make you beg for a seat at your own table. So, no, this isn't the story of a broken man. It's the story of a man who watched everything fall apart and realized it wasn't everything after all. It was just the beginning. And sometimes the best thing that can happen is being forced to start over.